Hello, my name is Lisa Bush, and I'd like to welcome you to the business license application demonstration. Business license is one of our general government modules, and so let's take a peek at what's behind the courthouse. This is where we have things like tax billing, building permits, code enforcement, and business license is one of those products. What's really nice about this solution is you can start building one database of names and addresses. So as an example, if you get a call from one of your constituents, you can actually go to the screen and just by knowing a little bit of information, their name, their phone number, or any combination, you can do a search. And on this one screen, I can see everything about that person. So I can see, do they have any tax accounts? I can go to that inquiry. Their utility accounts, do they have code violations? And do they have a business license? So I can double click on this instance here and I can go to that inquiry for that particular license. So everything is linked together. So everything, you can start building that one database of names and addresses. We have the exact same view by property. So you could come here to land management. You can look up a parcel and there's lots of ways to search. So you can search by owner, address, how it's zoned, legal description, or any combination, and you get to the exact same view. So you can see at this address what code violations, is there a license, what utility account. So it's just looking at it a different way, and business license uses all of these applications. So that's kind of the underlying database behind this product. So let's go ahead and let's go right into the business license module. Just like all the other products you've seen, the look and feel is the same with our menu structure. So things you do daily, we've got under the daily tab. We have a separate tab for reports, and there's also inquiries, and then there's a few tables. So we'll look at all of these different areas in this presentation. So the first thing I thought we would do is take a look at the screen where you would enter in information on your different licenses that you support in your community. Once again, I've got several different ways to look it up. I can look it up by type of license. This is totally defined by you, and we'll talk about some of the different ways you can set up the fees on these. It could be like a flat dollar amount. It could be based on like a range, like a utility rate. So we'll take a look at the different options there. I can look it up if I know the address, the license number. So lots of ways to get to the different records. And we'll go ahead and bring this up. So once again, the look and feel is the same, the way that the navigation is. You can log a call right in the application very easily. Now, on this system, you can also decide, do you want the system to automatically, by license type, do a sequential number? And we'll take a look at some of the setup options when we get to that section. So once again, what type of license is this? It can generate the number. We're going to track the status. You know, where is it at in your process? Have you sent out renewals? Have they paid? So there's a different status that we can track. You can also decide on your different licenses if you want it to have a renewal. There's a lot of licenses that you might do once a year and you just want to send the renewal so it reminds the constituent to come in and pay. You might have some licenses that are kind of a one-time thing and you don't want to do renewals. Totally up to you. You can have as many different combinations as you want. Now on this first screen, we're tracking dates and amounts. You know, what's the date of this license? Is there an application date? What's the effective date? And what's the renewal date? You don't have to have all your licenses renew at the same time. So if you've got like a standard business license and, you know, once they set up, you have it renew a year later and everybody's setting up at different times, you can support that, or you can have them all renew at the same time. Now, another thing I want to talk about is, as I mentioned, we can do several types of licenses. You can even have a license that's based on a factor. A factor might be the revenue, the profit, the number of employees, the number of tables in a restaurant. So it can get pretty flexible when you set up your different types of license. It's almost like a business tax that we can support with this product. So we handle that, and essentially what you're doing is you're sending out the renewal, the business sends in their return, and you're checking their math to make sure it's correct. So we can do those types as well. You can have a licensee and an application, an applicant be two different people. This is where we're searching that database of people. So as an example, if Lisa Bush gets a utility bill, her name's only in there once. When you search, you can find me and tie me to a license as well. So once again, you can start building that one database of addresses and people. Same thing with applicant. We do have user definable fields. So you can set these up on the business, and we also can have user definable fields based on the type of license. So there may be some additional information you want to track on a certain type of license. Now, we also have the ability, we have some municipalities that want to actually invoice for this license. So in other words, they want to send out a bill, they want to invoice them, they want to do penalties if they pay late, they want that balance at the front counter. So if that's your situation, we do have a link from most of our general government products that can directly post to our AR products. So code enforcement's a perfect example. You had to send Joe to go mow, we can create an invoice. Same thing with building permits or licenses. However, I will say most of the municipalities that I deal with, they don't want to recognize the revenue until they come in and pay. And in that scenario, you wouldn't be invoicing. But either way, we support that. You can also have unlimited attachments. So, you may have them, the return, there may be a special form they fill out. So just like all the other products, if you can attach it in an email, you can attach it to the business license database. And then there's also notes. And so you can keep all types of notes here as well. Now, another thing that's really nice about this solution is we do have a mail merge with Word where you can actually create documents, or in this case, maybe your own license, where we merge in fields from the database. So you could have your license or maybe a letter, maybe you've got one of those types of license where you're kind of checking their math to make sure it's correct and maybe it's wrong. You might want to automatically create a letter that you send to that business, saying, hey, it failed or you didn't calculate it correctly. So you can have as many different word templates set up and do letters from here. We can also do group letters, and I'll show you that in just a second. So all of that can happen here as well. So this is the master screen. Now, under reports, tons of reports. So you're going to have the ability to be able to print reports. Maybe you want to pull out a list of all your businesses that all have a certain type of license. Or maybe you want to get a listing of all the realtors in town by business type or status or effective dates or everybody that's expired. So lots of ways to pull this. As I mentioned, all the reports, you can print those to the screen. I guess I've got a lot of mine that are expired, so we'll rerun that, and you can kind of get a Rolodex of your different businesses in town. Now, other reports, you can do it by address. You can get a list of business by effective dates. Maybe you want to get a listing of a certain type of license with these effective dates to get a list of those types as well. Or, maybe for the auditor, everybody that's paid by a certain date. As I mentioned, this will help you automate the renewals. So this can send out reminders when it's time to renew. You can do all renewals dependent, irregardless of what type of license, or maybe you want to do a certain type of license with this effective date. So I want to get all my liquor license out. So I could do something like that as well. And it's where you might want to send this in a little window envelope, a little small renewal, you could do as well. But like I said, tons of reports. We can do mailing labels. Maybe you've got a type of license where there's a lot of paperwork they need to submit, and you just want to put it in a packet and run labels. And then we can do our our batch documents. And this is really great for, I need to send a letter to this license type with this status. So maybe I want to send a letter to everybody that has a business license that hasn't paid, or with these effective dates. So it gives you the ability to do group letters. So maybe instead of a little window envelope renewal, you want to do, an 8.5 by 11. So, but where you can, merge in information from the database. So we've got that as well. And then you can also get a list of who hasn't paid. There are some inquiries, and so these are the inquiries so that if you know a little bit of information, you can get to that license, and it's look but don't change. So if you know the name, the address, the type, and this will actually take you to that original screen that I looked at, and you can look at the information. Now, there's also one that I can look up by where I may want to get a listing by licensee and see all their licenses tied to that one name. So I could see, if there's multiple types, then I can drill down and get information on payment. So once again, unlimited history, easy to look and search, and that original inquiry that we looked at where I knew the name or the address, it takes you to these inquiries as well. So I can also look up an applicant. Now, there's a couple things I want to show you in tables. One is, here you've got those user definable types, where you can define that. How do you want to do your sequential information? Do you want it to auto assign? You can even have a build by department if you are invoicing that feeds into the AR module as well. And then under the license types, this is where we really get our flexibility. This is where you define all the different types of license. So as you get new ones throughout the years, you can easily turn those on, give it a name. Is this one that you want to automatically do renewals? What's the frequency? You might have certain renewals that are monthly or quarterly, or most are probably annually. And then you're going to also define the accounting. And keep in mind, if you have our financial system, it's going to flow to the GL just like um, building permits, utilities, courts. It's just one of those products that will post in. Now, the flexibility is, how do you want to calculate this? You can have a very simple $50 business license. You can have it be a percent, and that might be one of those calculated ones based on profit, revenue, number of employees. You can even have a stepped rate, which is kind of like a utility rate. For the first number, it's X, from this to that, it's something else. So if you've got a more complex rate, you can set that up here. And then also, if there's, a penalty, is it a dollar amount, or is it a percent, or just flat dollar amount? And then this is also, I mentioned earlier, you can have user definable fields based on type of license as well. There may be some additional information you need to capture on a occupational tax license than you do on just a standard business license. So this is really where you can set up and get the flexibility on what do you call it? How do you calculate? And you can have as many different types as you want. So like I said, very flexible. Here under documents, this is where you define those mail merge. Like if you want to do a custom business license, and this is the actual path on where that document is, so that when you create it, we're putting the information in the right location. So once again, this is one of our general government modules that if you want to, you can link it to AR if you want to invoice or not. But most definitely, it's going to also be one of those products, one of those several products that will flow to the general ledger. And you can very easily look at just the entries that come over from business license. So how things come in, you're not having to manually do those journal entries. So once again, I'd like to thank you for your time. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to show you anything that you'd like to take a look at. But thank you for your time today.